Sometimes, the fate of nations hinges on a single day. July 1214, a scorching Sunday in northern France, saw two massive armies converge near Bouvines. This wasn't just a skirmish, it was a fight for France's survival, England's future, and the Holy Roman Empire's destiny. On one side, King Philip II Augustus, determined to defend his kingdom. On the other, a coalition led by England's King John and Emperor Otto IV, eager to crush him. For France, defeat meant dismemberment. For John, victory would restore his lost empire. For Otto, it was a chance to secure his crown. The air was thick with tension and the promise of violence, a medieval Super Bowl with kingdoms at stake. The Battle of Bouvines, often overshadowed by Hastings or Agincourt, was just as pivotal. Kings were unhorsed, knights fought desperately, and the outcome would send shockwaves across Europe. This single day set France on the path to nationhood, pushed England toward the Magna Carta, and toppled an emperor. Let's step onto that field where modern Europe began to take shape in the dust and blood of one extraordinary Sunday. This is the story of how one victory didn't just save a kingdom, it helped create it. To understand Bouvines, we need to unravel the tangled politics of 13th century Europe. The Capetians of France and the Plantagenets of England had been rivals for decades. English kings controlled more French land than the French king himself. Philip II Augustus spent his reign chipping away at this Angevin empire. When Richard the Lionheart died, his brother John inherited the throne and promptly lost Normandy, Anjou, and more. Humiliated, John became obsessed with reclaiming his lands. His barons, meanwhile, grew restless under his heavy taxes and failed wars. John sought allies, finding a powerful one in Emperor Otto IV, who also had scores to settle with Philip. Otto's imperial crown was threatened by Philip's support for a rival, and the Pope had excommunicated him. For Otto, defeating Philip meant securing his throne. For John, it was about restoring lost glory. Together, they formed a coalition, joined by discontented nobles from the Low Countries. The stage was set for a showdown, France against the combined might of England and the Holy Roman Empire. The stakes, the future of Western Europe. Alliances were fragile, ambitions high, and the continent braced for war. Everything was about to come to a head at Bouvines. The anti-Philip alliance was a patchwork of ambition and resentment. King John bankrolled the war, planning a two-pronged attack. He'd invade from the west, while Otto and the main army advanced from the northeast. Otto's allies included Ferdinand of Flanders and Renaud of Boulogne, both technically Philip's vassals, but both with personal grudges. Ferdinand felt cheated by Philip. Renaud, once a royal favorite, had become a bitter enemy. These nobles saw the coalition as a way to secure their own power and independence. On paper, the alliance was formidable. English money, German knights, Flemish infantry. They believed their numbers and strategy would crush Philip. But Philip's smaller army had a crucial edge: unity. His forces were overwhelmingly French, loyal to their king, and fighting for their homeland. This wasn't just feudal obligation, it was a cause. The coalition, for all its power, lacked that unity of purpose. As the armies marched, the fate of France and Europe hung in the balance. The showdown was inevitable. Summer 1214. King John landed in western France, hoping to draw Philip south, but his campaign fizzled. Local support was weak, and his own barons were reluctant. Philip sent his son Louis to contain John, then turned north to face the real threat, Otto's massive army, outnumbering the French nearly 2-1. Otto's force advanced slowly, pillaging as it went. Philip shadowed them, seeking the right moment to strike. The critical moment came near Bouvines. Philip, realizing he risked being cut off, tried to retreat across a narrow bridge. It was Sunday, July 27th, a day when battle was considered a grave sin. As the French army crossed the bridge, its rearguard became vulnerable. Coalition commanders urged Otto to attack immediately, sensing their chance to destroy the French. Otto agreed. The French rearguard sent a desperate message. The enemy was upon them. There was no more running. Philip halted the retreat, turned his army, and prepared to fight. The battle would be decided here, on this field, on this fateful Sunday. The armies braced for a clash that would shape the future. The die was cast. France would stand or fall at Bouvines. Philip quickly formed his army right wing, center, and left, with himself at the heart, surrounded by his best knights and the Oriflamme. The coalition mirrored this, with Otto in the center, Ferdinand of Flanders on one wing, and Renaud of Boulogne with English mercenaries on the other. The battle began at noon with a furious cavalry clash. On the French right, Fighting raged back and forth, but the real drama was in the center. French urban militias attacked Otto's position but were driven back, opening a gap. Coalition knights charged straight at Philip. He was dragged from his horse, nearly killed, but saved by his bodyguards. This galvanized the French. With a roar, they counterattacked. Now Otto was in danger, unhorsed and forced to flee the field. The imperial standard fell and the coalition's center collapsed. Panic spread, soldiers began to run. The French seized the moment, pressing their advantage. The tide had turned decisively. The fate of kingdoms was being decided in the dust and chaos. By day's end, the French were in control. The battle was theirs. Otto's flight broke the coalition, but fierce resistance remained. Ferdinand of Flanders was wounded and captured. Renaud of Bologna formed a desperate defensive circle, holding out for hours before being overwhelmed. How did the outnumbered French win? Unity and purpose. They fought for their king and homeland, rallying when Philip was in danger. Years of loyalty paid off. This was more than feudal duty. It was national identity in the making. The coalition, by contrast, was divided and mistrustful, its leaders with conflicting goals. When Otto fled, no one could rally the troops. The alliance crumbled. French knights, especially those from the royal domain, proved superior in discipline and spirit. Philip's risky strategy, accepting battle and holding a strong line, paid off. The coalition's numbers meant little without unity. In brutal, close combat, the French prevailed. The fleur-de-lis triumphed because it stood for something greater than ambition. Bouvines was a victory of identity over numbers. The victory was total. The French banner flew over a field strewn with the defeated. High-ranking prisoners, counts, barons, and knights were captured, filling Philip's treasury with a ransom. Philip's return to Paris was a triumphal parade, cheered by nobles and commoners alike. For the first time, a French king was celebrated as the protector of all his people. Renaud of Bologna died in prison. Ferdinand languished for years. Other nobles paid dearly for their freedom. The coalition's grand plan was shattered. King John, hearing of the disaster, was forced to accept a truce and renounce his claims to Normandy and Anjou. The Angevin Empire was gone for good. Otto's defeat ended his reign. He died in obscurity, replaced by Frederick II, Philip's ally. The war was over. France was secure. The political map of Europe had changed overnight. Bouvines was more than a victory. It was a turning point. A new era was beginning. Bouvines reshaped Western Europe. For France, it was a nation-making event. Philip's authority was unchallenged, and the monarchy became the kingdom's dominant force. The victory cemented a shared French identity and set the stage for a centralized state. For England, the consequences were just as profound, but opposite. John returned in disgrace. His authority shattered. His barons rebelled, forcing him to sign the Magna Carta in 1215, a direct result of Bouvines. The Magna Carta limited royal power and laid the groundwork for constitutional government. Ironically, France's victory for royal power led to England's move toward liberty. The Holy Roman Empire, too, was changed. Otto's fall and Frederick II's rise shifted the balance of power. France was now free from imperial interference, emerging as Europe's dominant power. Bouvines ended German ambitions in the West. One battle had set two nations on radically different paths. Why remember Bouvines? Because it was more than a medieval clash. It was a catalyst for change. The battle marked the rise of centralized nation-states and set political developments in motion that still shape our world. It also signaled a shift in warfare. Infantry and urban militias proved their worth, foreshadowing the decline of knightly dominance. In France, Bouvines became a symbol of unity. In England, its consequence, the Magna Carta, became a symbol of liberty. Two legacies, two nations, one battlefield. Bouvines reminds us how a single day can alter history's course. Rivalries between kings shaped millions of lives. The world we know was forged in moments like this. That Sunday in 1214 changed Europe forever. And that's why Bouvines still matters.